Primarily, I hope to bring aid to the natives here and give them some hope.
We're really excited. I'm very excited, and I just want to get in and do as much as I can.
I don't know that the short time we're here we can do a whole lot, we can accomplish a lot, but I think we can at least start something that we can carry on.
There have been much larger medical missions to Africa than the one that left Phoenix for Tanzania in November of 2000. There have been more ambitious undertakings. But these doctors, nurses, and other staff did not set out to change the world, only to bring healing and hope to one small corner of it, one person at a time, one village at a time.
I treated a little baby with malaria, 18-month-old baby. And we put the baby into the hospital to be admitted. And to know that this baby was getting a sterile IV. I don't know, it was an incredible feeling knowing that this was not a reused IV. Everything was sterile and brand new.
The members of this medical team were part of Operation Starfish, a program organized by Iasis Healthcare and the Iasis Healthcare Foundation. Beginning in 2000, volunteer teams from Iasis hospitals have traveled to Tanzania to provide care for villagers in extremely remote, desperately poor areas of the Serengeti plains.
I think that it's very important that a company has an initiative that's outside its own corporate business purpose that gives something back to society. And in the case of healthcare, enables, we've got the opportunity to provide personnel and services and help and hope to those people in maybe other parts of the world who are not as fortunate.
These people truly have no health care available to them. The government has great limitations. These people are in very remote areas. They're very anxious for any way we can help them.
It can be very emotionally challenging. You see things that we have never seen before in this country. We see people with things that we don't blink an eye at in this country because it's just something that's treated very early on in life and is not a problem, but there it is.
So they can more easily hit the ground running, the medical team members are all drawn from one hospital on this trip from Tempe, St. Luke's in Tempe, Arizona. But the team is much broader than just those who actually go to Africa.
The hospital took ownership of what we were doing, and the employees became engaged.
What do you want?
In addition to our own employees, we have seen a tremendous outpouring of others, specifically the vendors and that who supply our hospitals with supplies and goods and services. And they're too numerous to mention, but the outpouring has been significant. The people at Project Cure here locally that allow us to use their warehouse and help us as we pack containers. We've sent 4 40-foot containers full of medical supplies to the Serengeti region of Tanzania, and those have all been donated supplies from the vendors.
Before flying for a one-day stopover in Amsterdam, then on to Arusha, Tanzania, and then by chartered plane to the Serengeti, the team had been well briefed on what to expect. Tanzania, once a part of British East Africa, has a long tradition of peace and stability, and a government that has always supported Operation Starfish. They knew that in the Serengeti, they'd be working in a dry climate, at an altitude similar to Denver's, among people who earn an average of $1 per day, and in facilities that by American standards are extremely primitive.
There's no way that one could ever imagine how many animals are here on this land. At one point during the safari, there were animals in one stretch of the plains that seemed to go on forever. And I'd never experienced anything like that.
Oh, that's a beautiful country. I can't even describe the beauty. It's just breathtaking.
To be able to just look out across the plains of the Serengeti and take in the full breath of clean air, and to hear in the background maybe the calls of the wild birds, or to hear the monkeys or the baboon. And the people are just a wonderful people.
In many ways, however, nothing could have prepared the group for what they would see and experience in Tanzania.
I was surprised at the clinics in the hospital. I guess I expected them to be a little bit more like actual clinics or hospitals that we're used to. And although they're doing a very good job with what they do have, it's very sparse, their supplies, and they're basically just rooms.
The medical team was amazed to see how their Tanzanian counterparts ingeniously managed under such difficult conditions, performing surgeries in a hospital without electricity, for example, by relying on a generator. Still, they found almost none of the things they took for granted in America.
It's very minimal. They operate without electricity. It was incredibly revealing to realize that they didn't even have an ophthalmoscope or an otoscope. And when we pulled out ours, the physicians had eyes the size of saucers. And so we had an opportunity to teach them about the use of the ophthalmoscope and otoscope, and that's something that Operation Starfish will readily fix for them. They're going to have that equipment.
Some of the surprises were very pleasant ones. The group learned, for example, that living in a tent could include hot showers and meals set on linen tablecloths.
The place where we stayed, our Sasakwa camp, is hard to describe to those people that have never been here. You could never ever stay at a hotel and eat better than we ate at this wonderful camp. The people here were just wonderful hosts. It really got to be our home away from home. And I would think that most of us are as comfortable here away from home as any place that we could be away from home.
The food here was phenomenal. So to say that we roughed it in the Serengeti would not be true.
Even with a wildlife viewing safari and a picnic in the bush, the trip was no picnic. Each day began before sunup. After coffee and breakfast, there was an hour's drive over bumpy roads to clinics in the villages of Nata and Robanda, and to a hospital in Magumu. Then, with only a short break for lunch, the team spent the day treating patients who had traveled up to 80 kilometers to see the American doctors and nurses.
I remember one morning we came in after having done a couple clinics at the Magumu Hospital, and when we pulled in that morning and I looked up, and the entire front courtyard was full of patients. The entire interior courtyard was full of patients. There had to be at least 500 people who'd been waiting there unknown amounts of time. And I took a deep breath that morning and thought, oh, what a need.
As they had expected, the team treated many cases of tropical diseases, particularly malaria, along with HIV, arthritis, TB, burns and infections, and a little of everything, even one man with a lion bite.
We saw some very very sad cases, and that's probably the hardest thing, is that you see some things that, if we were at another place, another time, we could help them, but we're not able to do that right now because we don't have the equipment here to do, provide them the services that they need.
If he was in the United States, they give him new knees. New knees.
We know that several of the patients that we saw, we made a significant difference. There's the gentleman who got bitten by the lion, high risk for losing his arm to infection or his life to sepsis. I think we were able to help that man. Some of the children in malaria crisis with anemia that we were able to get admitted to the hospitals and hydrated and blood transfusions.
We saw one village had a lot of malaria, and it was very wonderful to be able to have those malaria drugs with us, to be able to give to the moms, the dads, the children.
Whole families.
The whole families, and that just warms your heart.
There was a woman who came in and said she couldn't hear. We looked with the otoscope. She had a huge, dense cerumen impaction. Nurse was able to lavage it a little bit, and then using one of my Buck's curettes, we were able to remove this monstrous size cerumen impaction. And all of a sudden she looked up and said, I can hear, I can hear.
The children, they kind of made you feel like a hero, riding down the street in those Jeeps. All of them running out, waving at you. Felt like, you kind of feel like you were in a parade and you were something special and they were waving to you. But I don't think they realized that they were the special ones.
In only 2 weeks, the Operation Starfish team accumulated a lifetime of memories. But even more than the spectacular landscapes or the amazing abundance of wildlife, what the participants say stayed with them most were the people they helped.
They're very open, they're very receptive, very appreciative, very humble. It really makes you feel unworthy because they love you so much. And anything that you do, they can't do enough. I mean, they would give you anything that they had.
The children have just been absolutely wonderful. And so, a fond memory that I'll always have will be of the children as we were, leaving every day, waving to us as we were going out of town, going back out here to camp and everything. And they just, they're trying to greet us and welcome us the whole time, but they're just these huge big smiles from all the kids, and they'll run from the house out to the roadway in order to wave and be seen. Perhaps
One of the final moments that was just incredible today was when we were here and had the opportunity to meet, because of the generosity of Simon and Anna and the staff here at the VIP Safari Club here at the Sasakwa camp, to meet with the local leaders and the healthcare ministers and the district and regional administrative and healthcare people and all of the support people from the police, the military, all the way through the government representatives who were here. And at the close of that, to experience from the heart their sincere appreciation and their vision for our continued commitment and involvement with them. And when they gave us their handmade pictures of the Serengeti wildlife as a form of appreciation, and the handshake as the symbol between Operation Starfish and the Serengeti district, was perhaps one of the most moving moments of my life as a physician, and certainly Jeanette and I as a couple from Phoenix, Arizona. Just an incredible experience.
My favorite patient was a little girl with an abscess of the foot. And it was just the whole experience with her, seeing her in the clinic, seeing her just prior to surgery, where she just sat very still and very attentive and not moving and looking just like a miniature little lady. Putting her on the operating room table and hearing her her screams of fear, which were like none other than I've ever heard, And seeing her before we left, smiling and thanking us and saying goodbye.
All of the team members expressed one sentiment in common. They wished they could have done more, seen more patients, done more for some who needed more complex surgeries or longer-term treatment than they could provide there. But they also agreed on one other thing. They were grateful for the opportunity to reach all the ones they could. That, after all, is the principle that gave Operation Starfish its name.
The story of the starfish is one that's it's an anecdote of that deals with a small child who is walking on the beach after a storm at sea that has washed up a large number of starfish on the shore, and the child is throwing them back one by one. A cynical adult happens by and makes the comment, "Well, you're not making much difference here." And to which the child replies to the one that he's holding in his hand, "Yes, but I'm making a big difference to this one." And so I think as we think about Operation Starfish, we understand that we're not going to change the world with what we're doing, but we can change somebody's world. And we have. There have been some people that have benefited directly from what we've done. So we've been able to make significant difference in some small way. And that's really what we really get after every time that we've been there. We get this feeling that we have been able to make a difference in somebody's life.